Hello, my name's Eves, and I'm going to be talking about the quarter of the century that we've had so far and highlighting the best records that have come out in that time. I've picked 25 albums from the 2000s, 25 albums from the 2010s, and 15 albums from the 2020s, the decade that is happening at the time of the recording of this video. So for this first segment, I'm going to be talking about my favourite albums of the 2020s, which I think for some has been a decade of disappointment because there hasn't been huge strands of movement that can be quantifiably identified. And I think that is partly down to the fact that the spaces where we can discuss music have become so stratified and so pushed out to beyond the control of major publishing houses like Discourse was controlled in the 2010s and the 2000s by independent publishers like Pitchfork and NME. Now that wielding of movement and of the sort of status quo, what is considered avant-garde, is much more up to the purveyor. We have become such individuals as listeners, and you could put that down to the era of streaming, Trumpism, if you wanted to have that conversation. Excessive individualism is what I'm trying to get at. But that's not stopped the 2020s from having an exceptionally brilliant lineup of albums, although I did struggle to find 15 great albums from the 2020s than I did to find 25 great albums from the 2000s and the 2010s. There will be omissions, and I can talk about some of the more popular ones that I have taken off my list or have not included, but I will see how much time I have. So I've yapped on for enough of expedition without getting into albums, so hopefully I'm going to move over here. The albums will be up here and you can have a look at the album covers and then make your judgments on how amazing the album is based on the cover. You know, we can all be prejudiced. The first album I'm going to speak about is one that came out last year, and I discovered it earlier this year whilst in a bit of a slump. I'd started a new work place. I didn't really enjoy it. I was finding every day really difficult, and I'd gone through some pretty difficult times, and just having something just really brilliant, something that you can kind of bask in the face of, it does show me why people turn to religion, because having something so awesome, like generally the literal meaning of the word awesome, in front of you can really give you clarity on how you want to live your life. I'm going to poke the light away again. That album is heavy metal by Cameron Winter. Cameron Winter is the frontman of the New York City based band Geese, who put out another fantastic album the year before last called 3D Country, which I'd also recommend you check out. But heavy metal is such an exceptionally vibrant album. It is full of life. I mean, truly full of life. I saw a great comment from somebody who said it was an album about holding close the things we love dearest in a world that seems to treat material things like trash. And it's about things, you know. The album is this stream of consciousness diatribe, really. Winter talks about cavemen kissing, walking on walls, dying for baseball, microwaving things, and that's just on one song. That's on the brilliant Nina plus Field of Cops.
Sunglasses in the rain, tire tracks and caves. I'll understand one more empty box. I'll talk to every crowded room. I'll go to the great carnivals of pain and fight entire fields of cops and keep a coconut in my hand.
An exceptional song, but I really haven't thought of an album that has just such a great cluster of songs in a while. I mean, every single song is worth your time. Every song has something that you can really go into and take something out of. And I really can't say that much about other albums. I've really become so obsessed with it. I really was obsessed with it. I mean, I think I've listened to it over 50 times, which is something that is not expected of me. I think it's the best record of the last 10 years, and I really hope that people recognise how consistently brilliant it is, because it is my favourite record of the 2020s, and getting it out of the way at first. So yeah, so that's the first one. The second album I want to talk about is Phil Elverum's amazing Microphones in 2020, which is made up of one long song, which is 44 minutes and 44 seconds in length. I remember the night I listened to this album. I was part of this music community in this group chat, and we all got into Phil Elverum's music through the Microphones, through Mount Eerie, his two biggest projects that made albums like The Glow Part 2, like Mount Eerie, A Crow Looks at Me, Now Only, A Wind's Poem, if you're so inclined. And really, we all considered him a genius, regardless of what he would put out later in his career. And seeing the Microphones moniker being taken back, and this gargantuan sort of project, it seemed like it would be amazing, and we weren't surprised by the fact it was quite simply a work of brilliance. Elverum has this unbelievable ability to make you feel like you're not listening to a song, if that makes sense. You are really going through the motions with him.
I wake up with the sun in my eyes, beneath present moment skies, squinting and wondering how I got here.
There's no artist, I think, who can circumscribe their own passion and their own histories into the song and really narrate very kind of menial things that happen in their lives without making it feel didactic, without making it feel boring. Something that I think him and Mark Kozelek have in common, that are both amazing songwriters. And this album, it's a retrospective on the last 20 years of 25 years of the Microphones' existence. It's something that really does need to be experienced, but again, it's maybe one of those records that people should wait until they've experienced more of the Mount Eerie Microphones Phil Elverum discography. But it is quite something, and it is really just like lying down in a bed of leaves and just hearing every crackle and hearing the story of the leaf as it pops, and just being surrounded in hundreds of these. It's quite exceptional. It's a really good record, and I implore you, please check it out. We come to the first hip-hop album of this list, which is, I think, if you don't see this on a 2020s best of list, I think you're following the wrong people. It's Injury Reserve's By the Time I Get to Phoenix, which came out in 2020. It is a paean to the late Stepper T. Groggs, who was an exceptional member of the band Injury Reserve. It is by far one of the most creative and forward-thinking hip-hop albums ever made. It is quite a progressive step forward when it comes to music and hip-hop in general, because at points it doesn't sound like a hip-hop album. It takes the history of hip-hop from the turntablism of the Public Enemy era to the noise-based era of the aforementioned dialect, to the sort of very aggressively abstract rapping style and topics that pervaded the 2010s, and it turns it into something very emotionally fraught yet powerful. It is like you're standing in the middle of this great cyclone, and watching the walls of it suck up everything around it. And as I don't know grief in the same way that these artists do, and I won't act like I do, because that would be patronising, but you really do empathise through an artistic lens with how a loss can feel like it is destructive to the greatest degree.
Don't sit behind him, so you could just stalk him. Let's cut all that bullshit. What's the elephant in the room? Let's talk to him. Come on, let's talk to him. Don't hide him. Yeah, but I walking in circles. You thought it was gonna be a walk in the park with a probably, but now you walk in the park. But I would've, with all that shoulda, coulda, woulda, I'm in your neck of the woods with the dogs ready to bark on them.
And you don't often get that with music. You don't often feel the way that the artist wants you to feel, which I think is a real shame. Injury Reserve make that happen. By the Time I Get to Phoenix is arguably the best hip-hop album of the last 10 years, best of the last 20 years by a long shot. And it really is something quite unprecedented, and I doubt that anyone is going to do a better record than it in the near future. A better hip-hop record. It is really good. You should listen to it. I'm going to spend less time speaking about the next couple of albums, just because I'm aware I've talked quite a while already. I am aware that patience will be waning. I do talk a lot. So I'm going to skip through a couple of these amazing albums before I can get on to talking about some other fantastic records. So quickly, Big Thief's Dragon New Warm Mountain, I Believe in You, really exceptional folk album, but Big Thief's best album to date. They're really playing as a band who wants to do something, and not kind of trying to make an aesthetic, which I often felt about them in the past, for good reason or for not. I'm still not sure, but Dragon New Mountain is a really heartwarming record. I can only really describe it as being like a very large bowl of beans, and it's beans that just burst in your mouth, and you can feel the stories that come out of them in the way that Adrian Lenker, who is an exceptional songwriter, I must add, can make you feel.
Crooked courses, shadows on the moonlit floor, all my stars, winged creatures, gathering in silken height like the last human teachers. Once again, we must bleed new, even as the hours shake, crystal blood like a dream true, a ripple in the wound and wake you.
There are, I think folk albums that really do tell stories and really do want to mean something, rather than making a lot of pretty sounds, are a rarity these days, and that makes me sound like a big old boomer who longs for the days of Van Morrison and Jeff Buckley, Tim Buckley even. But it really, I feel like it is true. I think there's a big emphasis on pretty sounds in folk rather than writing a good song, and it's really good to see that Big Thief have chosen the latter rather than the former. So really good record. Probably won't be on a top 25 of this decade list by the end of the decade, but check it out, really good. The next one I want to talk about is Billy Wood's Aethiopes, or Aethiopes. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. If someone would let me know in the comments if you do end up watching it, I'd be really appreciative. Again, a hip-hop album that shows that you can't rest on your laurels if you want to be an innovator, and that goes for any discipline, but hip-hop especially, which I feel sometimes does seem to coast on ideas that aren't always the most intriguing, and Aethiopes is certainly not one of those albums. It is really challenging. It follows this really convoluted and really difficult to grasp structure, which ties into the slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade, of historical racism in the United States. And as somebody who studied history at college, and is going to do it again for my master's degree in a couple of months. I really do appreciate the historical side to it. It really does get the nerd in me out, and that seems like it's parallel to the album's discussion, because it is fantastic. The rapping is amazing.
Pills, me and her in the diorama. Sugar, molasses, rum. Sun blasted, bastard, son. Some laugh, some slumped and gassed at what we done. Sugar, molasses, rum. Sun blasted, bastard, son. Some laugh, some slumped and gassed at what we done.
I hate talking about rap as this dichotomy between rapping and production, but the production, the composition, I like to call it, because I'm an awful arsehole. They're fantastic. I really haven't heard songs that are that impressively composed in a hip hop environment since, I guess, by the time I get to Phoenix. So great record. And I'll move on quickly to another amazing album, which is Richard Dawson's The Ruby Chord. Now, Richard Dawson is a songwriter from Newcastle in the northeast of England. And he is an amazing songwriter. I will include one of his albums from the 2010s in my 2010s list, which will be out, I hope soon, hopefully by the end of the year. But the album I wanted to talk about was The Ruby Chord, which is probably the most difficult work that Dawson has undergone so far. It is really difficult, but from a compositional point of view, it is something quite unbelievable. Right? Really, really brilliant. Dawson's control of his environment, this not aesthetic, but this environment that he has created instrumentally through channeling pastoral influences, the history of English folk music, English folk rock, while also taking lots of pointers from post-rock and from psychedelic folk movements in the UK, in the US. It's so exceptional. But really, there is no album that has wowed me on a first listen more than The Ruby Chord. I listened to it when it came out. I think I've only listened to it once since, but I've really thought when it came out, wow, this is something really, really special. And I hope that people take that into account and really sit with it and wait for it, because it is an album that needs to be slowly digested, and I really hope you have the time for it, because it certainly has the time for you. The next album I'm going to speak about is Sprain's The Lamb as Effigy, which is an album that my friends have been very, very positive about. And I did get on the hype train initially when I heard it. I did see this long collection of 20-minute long songs and thought, this is tailor-made for me. Should I like this? And the answer is, when something is tailor-made for you, it's usually because you will like it. And I don't like to be sceptical about people taking my interests into account. So, yes, it was made for people like me, and I do have to accept that. And I also have to accept that it's brilliant. There's so much about it that you can speak about. The idea of Alex Kent, who is the front man of Sprain, or was one of two key core members of Sprain, being this titular lamb, going through these crises of faith, of health, of sort of metaphysical strife and psychological weariness, and that all culminating in these barrages of noise really is something that no major artist, I would say with the exception of Michael Gerard's Swans, have been able to accomplish in the last 20 years. And Sprain were a band who had so much grandiose ugliness in the way that they constructed a composition. They really, really leaned in on the atonality of the whole project, and as a result, the Llama's Effigy is a really, really potently scary and visceral album, and I again, something that not everyone will enjoy, even less people who are not accustomed to experimental rock and no wave in particular. But if you are somebody who is getting into no wave and into experimental rock, I think that the Llama's Effigy is the finest experimental rock record of the 2020s so far. Staying on the topic of Sprain, next up we have Alex Kent's new band, Shearling, with the album Motherfucker, I Am Both Amen and Hallelujah, which came out this year and is one of two spectacular albums that have already come out in 2025. It very much takes the same structural and compositional lessons that the Llama's Effigy does, and for that reason I was a little more critical of it than other people who kind of immediately crowned this as this towering masterpiece, which I do agree it is a masterpiece. It is fantastic, but I don't think it's better than the Llama's Effigy. That's the little secret. The amazing thing about Motherfucker in comparison to the Llama's Effigy is how cohesive it is. I mean, the Llama's Effigy is this sprawling cacophony of ideas that are related to everything, whereas Motherfucker is much more personal, and it's like it's like what they say about farts, better out than in, really. The Llama's Effigy is an album about letting the fart of horribleness out of yourself. Motherfucker is about keeping that shit inside of you and letting it bounce around until it creates the loudest sound known to mankind. And the very feverish symbolism that Kent uses in Motherfucker, the state horse of Idaho, the Appaloosa, the idea of Adam and Eve, the story of Genesis, they're very good axioms that kind of chain Kent to his subject matter in a way that the Llama's Effigy doesn't, and I think it's the really big decider between them. It's a lot less varied. It's a lot less varied because it's one long song, and often I think it is very focused on this idea of this rock, of this guitar orchestra, which is incredibly atonal, which is really difficult to somebody who is used to maybe more harmonic sounds. But I do have to say it is something really, really brilliant and something different. I think a lot it's come under a lot of criticism from people who don't like music, saying that it's for people who use a certain cataloguing platform, which I am a member of, and people have this sort of negative reaction to things that they don't understand quite enough, and they see other people understanding or appreciating, and they see that insecurity in themselves as being something that needs a reaction to protect themselves, I think, from feeling stupid, by saying, oh, these people are the ones who actually don't understand it. I understand it because I'm really smart and I hate this album. A little off topic, but I am definitely frustrated at the amount of people who seem to get a lot out of sort of doing the one-liner Twitter or letterbox thing about the kind of person who would enjoy this album. Whereas I think if you are somebody who likes music, and I think if you are somebody who is a tolerant listener and someone who is really open to new ideas rather than resting on your laurels, I think that it can really, really surprise you. It often gives me the people who speak about it like it's this pretentious living symbolism of pretentiousness and elitism. They often give me the same feeling as the people who speak about modern art being vastly inferior to the Renaissance and to surrealism and to older art. It's got a very reactionary viewpoint around it, which I'm not exceptionally fond of, but that is besides the point. I think I did want to say that because the next thing I'm going to come on to is an album that I think has been universally praised by people who know things about music, and that's the new Swans album. It's called Birthing, and it's amazing. It's the best record since To Be Kind. It's got their most thoughtful compositions since. It's got their best moments, their most varied compositions, and I think it is topical in a way that the rest of the trilogy, and maybe the Swans record since that trilogy, have not really been. It is really, really beautiful, and you don't often say that about a Swans record. I guess you could say a lot about 2018's, or is it 2017? 2017's The Glowing Man. 2017, yeah. Girard rediscovers the beauty in imagining a threesome with the President of the United States, and really does conquer on the record. He sounds towering and overbearing in a way that he has not sounded in many, many years. I had the great honour of seeing him live in Liverpool a few years ago. Seeing him really hypnotise himself with his own music really did make me hypnotised myself, in the same way that we're attracted to things that don't often make sense because we are so used to normality. And I'd like to thank Girard for his unwillingness to accept reality and unwillingness to conform, and to keep making amazing records 20 years in, because I know that if I'd made To Be Kind, if I'd made The Seer, if I'd made soundtracks for The Blind, and if I'd made Birthing, you would not see me in the studio again. I'd be resting on my laurels somewhere in Bali, trying to forget that there's going to be music released after me. Again, I'm going to skip through a few more albums because I'm approaching half an hour of recording time, and I don't want to keep you, and I don't want to ruin my voice because I have work tomorrow. I'm a class teacher. Here are some amazing records from the last 5 years that I think are really worth your time. IO's The Fortunes Told is this really amazingly dense and dark album full of just the most technically unbelievable work you'll hear in a while. I heard it when it came out because I was really, when I first got into music, I was really into an experimental label called PTP, and I don't quite remember what the acronym stands for, but I'd heard an album by IO with another musician called City called Spirit Volume, and I really did enjoy it. I really loved it at the time, and I don't really anymore, but it did turn me on to IO. Please check it out. It is in the trend of the other records where there's a large emphasis on long, elongated, very, very dense, noisy compositions. But it is really worth your time, and I did want to spotlight it because it didn't really get a lot of love when it came out, and I'd like people to go back and listen to it because it is really exceptional. The next record I'm going to speak about is Lil Ugly Mane's Volcanic Bird Enemy and the Voiced Concern. Travis Miller, who is the man behind Lil Ugly Mane, you might have heard his records from the 2010s, Mr. Thug Isolation, Oblivion Access, Third Side of Tape, loads of great albums. Also Man with Helmet, another side project of his. But I haven't been attracted to his music as much as I was to Volcanic Bird Enemy, because I think there's a very big vulnerability to it that was not present in the rest of his music. Mr. Thug Isolation was this was almost a satire on Memphis hip hop. Oblivion Access was far too into its own misanthropy for me to enjoy, and Third Side of Tape is a good album, but it's one of those ones. It's these very long extended hip hop tapes and ideas that don't always attract me. So hearing something that fully elaborated on what Miller really wanted to do with an album and really wanted to do in the album format really showed his potential coming to light as an independent artist, and showed that he can really be this sincere and deadpan writer as well as a composer, which, you know, is not easy to do. But to do a record like he did, to do Volcanic Bird Enemy, and to release it and to have that be praised in the way it has, I think it's really good. I think it's amazing that he's been able to do this and to release something so exceptional. So a few others that I did want to mention is the Still Houseplants album from last year, If I Don't Make It, I Love You. And I really like this album. I saw it got mixed reviews when it came out, which is really puzzling to me because we spend a lot of time speaking about post-punk bands from London, Squid and Black Midi and Black Country New Road and what's the other guy? Who are the other guys? Shame. And we don't often spend a lot of time thinking about artists who are not part of the windmill scene, and thus I think we end up believing that they're novelty acts rather than pushing things forward. And push things forward is really what If I Don't Make It, I Still Love You is about. It's this marriage of these very free-ranging vocals with these with this simple drum, guitar and bass arrangements beneath it, but they go on through noise and through through almost cataclysms, while these sort of little pleasures of these incredibly formally trained vocals go over it. I mean Jessica Hickey Callenbach, who is the lead singer, is just by technical standards a fantastic singer.
I can get to more faster. I can get to more faster. Charge it fully forward. I can take forgiveness. Charge it fully forward. I can sing what's not. Call me by whichever angel made you go.
And the fact that it comes over these really free and atonal compositions at times is so interesting, and I really hope that Still Houseplants keep staying weird. They're a band from the city that my family's from, Glasgow, and to hear more great bands like from Scotland, in the vein of guys like Longfin Killy and the Cocteau Twins, if you will, just makes me proud to be Scottish, really. So, check it out, really go and support this record, because we need more things like it. The penultimate record I'm going to speak about is something that I've actually had a little bit of pushback from my friends about, and it's an album called Logical and with Double Overbar, which is by Pragmatic Quartet, who are, as I understand it, a group of 4 young people who met over the internet and record a lot of music together in the sort of mashy, epic collage tradition of Elysia Crampton, and I listened to this on a very, very long bus ride, and I needed to, because it was a bus ride from New York City to Maryland, where I was meeting a friend of mine. And I was really taken aback by how creative it is. As someone who's a really big fan of Orteka's NTS sessions, which I will talk about in my 2010s videos, hearing something that is really pushing electronic music to its compositional and almost sensical limits.
So I can know when and what allows me to become you. I'll moderate you for a long time. I'll look at you from every touch point. Hey, what are true colors? What is the phrase true colors meant to mean? Every day
is so interesting to me. I really did find it a big step forward for electronic music, which, for some people often can rub them the wrong way, I think, because it is a lot. It's both a lot in terms of how much music it is, as well as how long it is. I mean, because there's a lot of notes, because it's a very long album and every song is like 20 minutes long and every song has like a billion things in it, and I love it. It's around 4 hours long. Does it justify its length? Absolutely not. Does it work all the time? Definitely not. But is it one of the most forward-thinking records of the last 20 years? Absolutely. And it really does make me upset when people talk about it like it's a novelty act, because I think it is a serious piece of art made by serious people who want to push the genre forward. The last album from the 2020s that I'm going to speak about, and this I'm going to do very briefly because my voice is going, is the newest record from Father John Misty, Mahashmashana. And this is almost entirely to do with its title track, which is the best song of the last 10 years. I've used the word towering twice in this video, 3 times if I'm counting just then, but it is so towering, really big. I mean, it is like everything is culminating into that song. I really haven't heard a song that works with its dynamics so well, that makes itself big as well as is big. It is about everything. It's about nonsense. It's about, you know, about love. It's about acceptance. It's about just drawing everything in the world close to your chest and holding it there. And just something about that makes me really emotional. The idea that we can control what's around us and make it into song. Father John Misty does have his critics, and I'm not one of them, because I think he's a really great songwriter. And Mahashmashana is the jewel in the crown. Is the album perfect? I am inclined to disagree. I think there are songs that I would rather not hear than other songs. But for that title track alone, it has to be on here.
Describe Mahashmashana. All is silent, and in the next universal dawn, won't have to do the corpse dance. Do the corpse dance.
There's other great songs on it, like Mental Health, like I Guess Time Just Makes Fools of Us All, like Summer's Gone, the She Cleans Up with the Viagra Boys. There is such a life to it, and even when it doesn't work, you can appreciate it. Even when it does great, it feels like you are the problem, which I think is a good compliment for a record, and I'm sure Josh Tillman would be very happy with that assessment. So there we have it. Those are my 15 favourite albums of the 2020s so far. I'm really excited to see what the rest of this decade holds, because I know that there's loads of great music to be conceived, and there's probably loads of great music that I haven't heard yet that is waiting for me. I'm going to try and make a video on the 2010s and the 2000s. Those videos will be longer than this one, because I will be talking about 10 other albums. So thank you very much for bearing with me if you did throughout any part of this video, and I really hope that you've enjoyed the discussion, and please let me know what you think in the comment section of this video. Bye bye, I've been Eves, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.
Do you know about peeling an onion? Would you know about Nando's in London? Would you know about buying a laptop? When was the last time your girl held back shots? The streets are asking, was it a facial? Black plus blue, that's green, interracial.